Good afternoon, members of the town of
Just 1
Yarmouth.
second. I think we need to officially start the meeting, okay?
No problem.
We have not done that yet, okay? So welcome to the August 3rd, 2020 meeting of the Yarmouth Board of Health. I'm Hillard Bosky, the chairperson of the board. And just keep in mind, this is a remote participation meeting. So if anyone is listening or viewing this, they can go to the website, the town website, and get more information about how to participate. So why don't we start off with attendance? Mary, are you present?
Yes.
Eric?
Present.
Charlie? Charlie, are you on? I know you're not on Zoom. Did you call in, Charlie? Apparently not. Deborah, I know, is not able to attend. Director Murphy, are you here?
Yes, I am.
That's great. So we have a quorum, so we can start. And the first item on the agenda would be, as usual, the public comment. If there's anyone in the public who would like to make a statement, this would be a great time to do so. Looks like the line is not too long. All right, looks like we're done. Why don't we go on to item number 2, and that's a hearing, a variance request, and location of the home is 4 Marsh Point, which is in Yarmouthport. And what's listed here is a septic system repair. And it looks like a total of 4 variances that we are going to look at today. Hopefully everyone got a chance to get to the property and take a look. Director Murphy, anything you want to tell us about the property and what the plan is?
Yeah, I'm sorry on that, Mr. Chairman. Charlie did call in, said he wasn't able to get through twice, gets a blank call and was dropped. He's tried several times and is having difficulty. We're having difficulty picking him up. So.
Okay, thanks for the update. So let's continue.
Yeah.
Hopefully he gets in later. Okay, so.
What we have is a straight repair of a failed septic system at this location for Marsh Point. We have gone back and did soil testing, did hit some silt clay loam. They're going to put the system in the only spot in the front corner and between the house and the street, as you can see. You want to just show that with their little. Okay. So maybe Dan, you can show where the system's going to go, right in the front, right there. It's the furthest that we can get away from the top of the bank and wetlands. The systems are a little bit bigger now than they were, so that's why it stretches out. We have wetlands that kind of creeps up on 2 sides. So we do have one side that's the closest area is down the bottom, which was the about 43 feet.
Excuse me.
But that will go over.
Bruce,
So
just orient us a little bit of direction, north, east, south, west, just so we get oriented where we are.
Dan, can you point to that where the system, can you outline the septic?
Sure. And
Just direction-wise, where we.
Yeah, north is up on this drawing. This is Dan Ojala from Down Cape Engineering speaking. And as Bruce said, this is in the front of the house, so it's between the house is between the system and the wetland. There's 2 different resource areas that come in. There's a bordering vegetated wetland down there. The wetland is down around elevation 10 or so, drops off a little bit to the north. There's a second dry resource area, which is a coastal bank, and it's a technical coastal bank where the flood zone hits and it's a little over 10%. So it's not a particularly sensitive resource. You just want to kind of keep an eye on that for stability and so forth. And we've introduced a liner to help mitigate breakout in that area there. As Bruce said, the old system you can see here with the mouse going around it is quite small. The new systems, there's a larger loading rate or a smaller loading rate for the same sand. It's a fine sand, and so ends up being a good bit bigger. We worked with staff. They actually counted a 5th bedroom in the house, but we're proposed, you can see on the floor plans, to open up that to a 5-foot opening so that it'll be considered part of the living space of the house and not a 5th bedroom. So we're sticking with the 4 bedrooms that's assessed there now, and introducing a new tank and pump chamber to lift it up just a little bit above where it is now. The tank size is slightly small. The new 1,500 is the minimum. So we've got the old 1,000 plus another 500. So we'll be at the correct size on the tankage, and you get that little bit of extra help with the Zabil filter and the second T to help clarify the effluent prior to discharge. So you can, under maximum feasible compliance, you kind of do the best you can with what you have. We were able to go with a full-size system. You can seek a reduction in the size of the leaching and then pull it back a little bit from the resource areas. But this place is already on its 3rd system. The original one was done by Down Cape Engineering back in '77, one of our first projects. And I think one of the very first wetland Yarmouth. There, you can look at the old files. Then it was redone in '94, and now it's tired again, another 27 or so years later. So I'd kind of recommend using the full size leaching here just to make sure we get the full lifespan out of it. The soils are a little bit on the tight side. There's a strip out, and then the fine sands underneath should do well. But this will distribute the load. We'll have a nice full 4 feet of separation with the finer material. There should be good pathogen removal. Should be a nice safe system for the environment. But under that maximum feasible compliance, we're looking for lot line reductions, a little bit to the water line because there's a nice tree there, and the water line, as you can see, very tight to the lot line on the north. Of course, we'll sleeve it, so there will be 0 chance of any problems there. And as I mentioned, is 17 3 feet. A little bit tight, but again, that's a dry resource area. We're almost 43 to the wetland, and we have introduced a liner there to help mitigate any concerns about breakout. So that's about what I would say on the subject. Of course, I'd be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Just one request. The package we received online was really very difficult to read, even with a magnifying glass. It was tough. I was wondering if you could just show us slowly with your pointer where the 4 reductions in setback exist on the drawing.
Yeah. So is it zoomed in pretty sufficiently there?
This is much better than what we were given. Yes.
Sure.
Thank you.
So starting from the top, SAS to lot line is 10 to 5. This is commonly granted when you're trying to keep away from a resource area. The road isn't particularly sensitive, to a septic system, whereas the wet resources, you want to try and maximize that distance. So those are routinely granted, but this would be the 5 foot here. That would normally be 10 feet, which is about where that old system was there. But again, the much larger system requires that. So that's the first variance, 10 to 5 in that area there against the street. SAS to water line. This is on the north. The water line is extra heavy dark line there. You could see the tree we're trying to save just on the north there, great big oak. And but there'll be not only the sleeve, but we're introducing a liner, like a pool liner, the 30 mil liner. So that will provide an extra separation and cause any wayward flow to fall vertically below where the water line would be affected. And of course, the water line is sleeved as well. Plus, it's 150 psi plastic. Plus, it's pressurized to 60 psi. So there would be very, very, very remote chance of any problems there. So that's what variance number 2, reduction from 10 to 6.2. The SAS to the coastal bank, again, that's the dry resource area. So you can see the top of coastal bank listed here, goes through the V and gravel drive. And again, that's a technical bank. It's a little bit over 10%. So it's where the flood zone hits. The flood zone in this area is a still water A zone with the elevation of 14. So that comes up the driveway, and it's fairly close to the leaching. It's about 17 feet or so. And so that's normally a 50-foot of the state code. And so that's that one. And then the state would require 50, where this is 42.9 down to the wetland. Flag number 8 is the closest. Kind of jumped up a little bit here where there's some seepage out of the side.
Dan, can you speak up a little bit or get a little closer to your computer so we can hear you a little clearer?
Yep. And then I'll project a little more. Does that sound better?
Yeah, if you can project, and can you also talk about the wetland and the upper bordering vegetation, the distance?
Sure. So the wetland is that great big marsh system, which is it's actually got quite a bit of Phragmites in it, which are the invasives from England or Europe that nobody really likes. And they've replaced some of the normal salt marsh plants in here. And they did we actually had this adjudicated through the Conservation Commission. They actually had some Phragmites removal Crawford Land Management recently. So that was studied carefully by the Conservation Commission. And these flags represent the landward edge of the bordering vegetated wetland / salt marsh / Phragmites line. And it's a very, very clear delineation. And it's also a sharp topographical break where it goes right up the hill after the wetland. So that's the closest point there. Again, we've got about 5 or 6 feet of silt loam and then a lot of sand underneath that. So with a liner, we would have dry air for 4 feet underneath the system. That would fall down and remove all the pathogens. Then it would enter the groundwater, would have to seep down and take its time and slowly head towards the wetland. Depending on how much water falls in, whatever breaks out, but we'd expect that similar to the last 2 systems, there wouldn't be any problem. And one thing to take some solace in it from the nitrogen point of view is that the Phragmites for sure, but all the salt marshes love a little bit of nitrogen and they just gobble it right up. They're basically a nitrogen sink, very efficient. And with the big 9-foot tide on the north side, there's very few concerns over nitrogen in these areas right here. The south side embayments tend to be more sensitive. Yeah, so that's the resource areas. Again, it's on the downhill side where, as you can see, keeping everything just as far from that as we can and compressing it up away from those wetland resource areas. The 2 town regulations are the BVW, which we were just speaking about. Flag number 8 is 42.9 versus the normal 100. And the BVW is 100 to 55. 54 rate. If we get any chance of saving this other tree here, that's really the only spot for that tank. So, and they're sealed units, nice new modern concrete mix, and we wouldn't anticipate any issues with leakage from a brand new modern tank like that.
Can you show the house floor plans also, Dan, what the change on the bedrooms are you're making? And again, speak up louder into the computer.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you just call them up and just kind of walk
open up
the house floor plans.
Yeah. So this is the interesting one where there were some changes to it. I get the choice of rotating clockwise, so bear with me here. There we go. So this is the existing floor plan. We call it floor 1, lower level. And staff had brought up bedroom number 1 here. it was utilized as an office by the owner, but it has the privacy. It even has a closet, and it's just big enough. So what we did is we we're going to move the office over to this, what was considered a bedroom, and do a 5-foot opening there. And so that will normally, of course, under Title V and your regulations, if you don't have any privacy for sleeping, then it cannot be a bedroom. So that takes care of that. So there's bedroom number 1, and you can see everything else is just halls, rec room. This is an open porched outside garage. And then floor plan 2, here we've got floors 2 and then the upper portion. So floor 2 has just one single bedroom on it. It's living, dining, kitchen, family room. There's a nice living space there, the big deck. And then upstairs in the smaller area, it's 2 bedrooms up, 3 and 4. So that's the layout. And again, if there's anything interesting to talk about, it's just that we are proposing this to open this up to 5 feet wide. And so we'll work through the building department and Bruce's, the health department, to make sure that that gets done prior to the certificate of compliance and so forth.
Board members have questions here?
Dan, do you have an installation time when the system would be installed?
Not firm, but the property is on the market, so probably the sooner the better.
So they can do it within the standard 90 days, 3 months time the board would approve?
I believe so, yes. I mean, if you want to give it an extra few weeks for COVID, feel free, or we can come back and request an extension if there's a snag.
Just a question on the tanks. Maybe you can go through the history of it a little bit. The initial system was put in the 70s, correct?
77, yeah, 1,000-gallon tank and a 1,000-gallon leach pit.
Okay, so that, and what do you know about the floor plan at that point? How many bedrooms do you think were there at that time?
I'm not entirely positive on that. They by the 78 code, it probably would have been enough for 4 bedrooms with a single pit. I know Barnstable always wanted a second pit, but the flow calculations back in the day were extremely generous. I don't have the info handy. I do have a copy of our site plan. It just doesn't say.
Okay. And what do we know about the condition of the original tank? Since you propose using it again, what?
Correct. Yeah, it's a precast tank, and generally it did pass the inspection recently. They had noted it was a 1,000-gallon tank, and then it was 3 4x8 flow diffusers with 2 foot of stone. And this is 320. So we generally will let them roll. It was holding water up to the flow line and apparently in good sound conditions. Any old code system would definitely recommend if it was a 750-gallon tank or something, then would generally pull it out. But in this case, it appears to be fine.
Director Murphy, how do you feel about that? I don't know anything about 50-year-old tanks and what life expectancy would be.
If they inspect it and it's still holding, a lot of the concrete tanks can last a number of years. So I'd feel comfortable with that at this time. It did pass an inspection. The location he's showing the system is really the furthest away from any of the upland or bordering vegetation of the wet area. It's the farthest way it can go. It's just a tight lot that was developed, in the 70s. The house was constructed at that point in time, and they're pushing it as far as we can go. And this, as we know, the systems are bigger now than they were at that point in time. Is why we're getting squeezed on the distances. But it is the best location for it to go. The engineering firm will inspect it going in and certify it by plan back to the health department to check the soils and check the location and check the water line and liner going in.
And if someone wants to add a bedroom, what would need to be done for the system? In other words, someone chooses to use the first floor office as a bedroom, what would need to be done to the system?
Any change from the plan that we have now and a new plan and a new building permit that's going to show this floor plan that we received reviewing, that's showing the 5-foot opening, any change in that would need to come back. That will be the official plan on file. So if there's any change at a date, they would need to come back for a building permit. If anything was picked up different in assessors, this is the floor plan that's record.
And what about the system new system that's going in right now? How would that accommodate a 5th bedroom?
It would not. It's designed for 4 bedrooms. They would not be able to increase to 5 bedrooms. Based on the plan submitted, the plan and the design calculation says 4 bedrooms, and the application that comes in for the septic installation will also say 4 bedrooms.
And the reason that it wouldn't be suitable is you would, your board would deny it based on the requirement for a reserve area. And the reserve area would not meet the performance standards, currently. So I would expect it to be denied. You could always request it, but I wouldn't, I would advise the client not to try that. I think that's, if you want a 5-bedroom home, don't buy this one.
What's the access to the porch there on the first floor? I mean, there's no exterior access, right?
There's some stairs that show on the site plan down to from the gravel drive up to that deck. So there is it's a 10-foot whatever. There is a way up. It may not show perfectly on the floor plans, but there is one in place. If you're looking at the screen here, it's cut off, but this would be the stairs up to that deck. Is that what you mean?
I was looking at the first floor, the one that is next to the office, says porch in the corner.
Oh yeah, I think that's kind of under the deck sort of a situation, because it's kind of it's a bit of a downstairs, then a first floor, then a little bit of it's like a 1.5 story with a walkout situation.
Yeah, there's a car there today. When I went to look at it, I didn't feel comfortable looking around on the other side of it. So, so it's a room that's there's no outdoor access.
From the porch outside, apparently not. I think a door would have shown up there if there was, which is odd. But then again, yeah, it's not heated space, so it's not a bedroom. So they would certainly be allowed to have a door if maybe it's just a screen door and they didn't bother to draft it. But it's not heated space for sure. Yeah, it looks like it's underneath the deck. So it probably has a rubber roof, and then there's probably a screen door in it, I would guess. They just didn't show it on the floor plan.
I can stop talking. What people have questions here, comments on the board?
Dan, are you recommending an installation date of later than 3 months because of COVID? Are you hoping maybe for sometime now, between now and the end of the year, December 30th?
Yeah, if the board would entertain that, would appreciate it. We'll certainly try and get it in sooner, but that might save everybody a little bit of hassle. Again, if there's, if somebody is interested and puts money down, and I'm sure it'll get done right away. I don't for sure know, but the ladies expressed a serious interest in selling the property sooner than later. So, but that extra month, I think, everything's a little bit slower with this COVID between site visits and, inspections and everything. So we would appreciate an extra month if the board would entertain it.
Board members, what do you want to do here? We've got the variances. You want to move ahead? Someone want to make a motion here, and then we can move along here in the meeting.
I move that we grant the variance requests. Do I have to list all of them?
No, we can put down just
As printed in
all
the
four-
application's fine.
right, the 4 that are on the application would be fine.
Okay,
That's all.
I move that we grant the various requests as stated on the application for 4 Marsh Point Road, in Yarmouth Court.
Okay, thank you. Well done. Is there a second to that motion?
Can we just say that it's to be done in, would we say 4 months
Yeah, that sounds good.
rather than the 3?
It's fine with me. Eric, you're okay with that?
Sounds good.
I like it then. Good. Okay, so we're second. Thank you.
Second.
Any further discussion on it? See, is there none? If you're in favor of granting the variance, Eric, can you raise your hand if you? That's 2. Mary's 3. Okay, fine. Motion passes. Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
very much for your time.
Okay, Daniel, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. That brings us to item number 3 on the agenda, if that's in front of you. And that's the drive-in, which is located at 669 Route 28 in West Yarmouth. And in parentheses, says possible vote. And 2 things are listed. One is outdoor seating, and the other is alcohol sales. So in the packet, there are some descriptions of, I guess, how the sale of alcohol with a proposal to do, with how that would take place. Bruce and I had spent some time over there, and which was helpful. I don't know if anyone else got to drive over or not, but Director Murphy, if you can, bring us up to date. What's going on with the drive-in?
Certainly, Board of Health members. What we have is the drive-in, just for bearings. It's next to the Lobster Boat restaurant on 28 across from Captain Parker's and the Witta Museum, where the old drive-in used to be located. We have a new drive-in that has gone in, been developed, temporary drive-in, has 3 screens, 2 large LED screens, and it's a very good site. I've had a look at, for the board, you have information in your packet. I did look at the site for drive-ins. I did review the governor's orders, which for drive-ins, it says people in general are supposed to be in their cars. I did look at Wellfleet. I did communicate with Wellfleet Drive-In, where they allow them to sit in front of their car and space out their cars. My concern was also with this hot weather, keeping people in their cars was a concern. People might be running their cars to keep their air conditioner going, which would affect the car next to them. So the developer who you see on the screen here that we'll talk later, Adam Epstein, came up with an idea of increasing the sizes, and we'll go into that and show that in a little bit more detail, of the driving site where people would park their cars. So it'd be like a pod configuration, and you would have a car on each side of you. And I think we can show a screen on that. Let me just see if our Zoom master can call up the parking scenario that you do have in your packet, but we can show people that are at home. So if you can go to the screen. So give us a second. So we'll call up the parking screen, and we do have some photos of what a pod would look like. And then I can give a little bit more information on that and how people are parked in. And then I think you'll hear from the drive-in person. Well, that's the new one. This is showing a pod that has been developed, and you can see there is stakes in the ground with the ropes outlining the 16-foot wide by 18-foot long. And probably had, this is from Friday night, which I viewed on Friday and again on Saturday. A lot of people were just sitting in their trucks. Some were sitting in the side. So this one shows you 2 chairs next to the car. So you can see where the 2 blue chairs are would be, in theory, 4 chairs, and you have a car between you. So there's always going to be at least probably 10 feet of social distancing. They also have handicapped spots reserved also. So let me just see if these are the ones that came in tonight. Do you have the past ones? Any of the past file at all? Well, how about the past Board of Health agenda that showed? Do you have to go in that individually? I'm trying to look for the, there we go. Can we just scroll down through? So do you have to go to another? But don't go to graphs, go to. No, no, go back. No, go even more. No, go, keep going, keep going. Yeah, what are those?
Bruce,
Yeah,
on that picture there, is there supposed to be space between the cars there?
yes, this one right here is shown correctly with the car with the 4 chairs here. This car should have been parked on the other side of the pod with the 4 chairs. So you always have cars between that. And that's one thing that, interesting that I took this photo, because most of them were parked correctly. And they do have staffing and that have moved a couple if the people were parked incorrectly, because it's important that they have that. It looks like, unfortunately, we're having trouble showing, getting back all the other data up. But it is a 16-foot wide by 18-foot long pad, and I guess there's no way for us to go back and get data. All right, well, I guess we'll have to go with that, unfortunately. So based on that, and I think you do have the letter, my letter in the packet to the board, as I made the decision for the consideration to go forward, because I wanted to see how it going after reviewing, talking to Wellfleet, looking at a pod consideration that they set up that we could view, that based on the heat temperatures, as I mentioned, effect on air conditioning, and that they would be able to provide proper social distancing of more than 6 feet with cars on each side acting as a barrier, and parking staff would be assisting to ensure that pods were going to be used correctly, and that prior to the show, on the screen is announcements that made about proper social distancing, wearing a mask if you leave your pod, and also if you leave your pod to go to the porta johns or the food area, and that the pods has a picture of how the pods up on the screen, the movie screen of how the cards are supposed to be set, and that people must watch the movie or entertainment from their pod. Another precaution that's going to be implemented is on the diagram of how people are supposed to pull in, besides being shown on the screen at a longer time when people arrive, that will be forwarded to people when they purchase their tickets. They will also get these instructions and a diagram. And then a day or 2 days before the event, it is also will be shown to the people again. So we'll have should have good control to ensure proper pod parking. And I think that's key. So based on that, I made the decision, I did talk to the chairman, that based on those conditions, that I felt it was reasonable to grant those considerations with those conditions. So I think before we get to the whole condition of alcohol, I want to sit on, discuss the seating in that. Is that you pulling that up? Is that? Oh, Adam, good job.
You got it? Can you see
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, you're doing good. I'm glad when the applicant can take over the meeting instead of us. So thank you very much. So if you could go over, Adam, this is what you're going to show on the screen, the pod setup, and then your staffing for that. That would be a great segue into you. Thank you.
Of course.
Could you
Can
just
you hear me
introduce-
okay?
Yeah, you can just introduce yourself, Adam.
Hi, everybody. My name is Adam Epstein. I'm the owner of Innovation Arts and Entertainment, and we're the, I guess, developers and operators of the new Yarmouth Drive-In. We obviously have been racing very, very aggressively to build and continually improve upon our site by both following the guidelines out of the governor's office, working with the town of Yarmouth and the town of Yarmouth Health Department to stay aware of what the current situations are, to ensure that we're always on top of everything that's happening in this ever-changing environment we're in. We have a few standard procedures that we employ for all live events, but that are specifically used nowadays for COVID awareness to inform our attendees about what kind of behavior is expected of them, what to expect when they arrive at the site, and then to ensure that they comply with our standard operating procedures for their own safety, health and safety. So we have a slide roll that happens during the pre-show of continual slides, such as what you're seeing here. We have mask reminders always showing up on the screen. We have slides like this one. We have try to give us provide a little levity with the need for social distancing and mask wearing. But beside the on-screen advertising and opportunities like this, we also produce what we refer to as a know before you go email. And that's an email that goes to every person who has a ticket for the night's event with clear instructions and details about things like how they will be expected to park, what they should have to do when they're outside their vehicles, how they buy concessions and how they pick up their concessions. All of these things, because we do believe that an informed attendee is an easier one to achieve compliance with the regulations that we're required to follow. So we don't want them to be hearing for the first time that we expect them to be wearing a mask when they arrive. We want them to know in advance so that if they have any objections, they can tell us before they get there. And so part of that, and we've found that it is a very successful procedure that allows us largely to guide people to proper behaviors without getting into any sort of confrontations or arguments. But at the same time, we employ over 40 people for a live concert event, either comedy or music, that are always monitoring and guiding people back into proper compliance. So if that means that, for example, like a car that you see where the car is next to another car because the car is on the left-hand side when it should be on the right-hand side, we will ask the attendee to actually move their car. And frankly, nobody has really objected to that because it's not really any inconvenience. They're not moving their car to a different space. They're just moving their car over to the side of their pod. We call them suites or pods. That keeps them separated from the neighboring suite by the length of a vehicle plus basically 6 feet. So we have a minimum of 10 to 12 feet between groups of people, basically because they're all separated by vehicles themselves. The vehicles act as borders, and in addition to the ropes and posts that you saw in that picture that Bruce showed earlier. But admittedly, we do have people who may pull into spot incorrectly, and they need, and we may have ushers who are learning for the first time at how to guide cars in. So, you know, this is, we've only just had our second live event. So we are perfecting the process. We are far from perfect, but we are always observing and coaching our staff in how to do it properly, because we know that this is a very serious matter.
And you also use it for the movies, people coming for a movie, it's the same setup.
That's correct. The only thing about the movies is that the attendance is far and away smaller than a typical live event. So we have 440 spaces, which is what we were at 469 spaces. We had 12-foot spaces, 12 by 18 spaces. With this new configuration, we expanded the width to 16 feet by 18 feet. And we reduced the capacity by about 30 cars. So, but on a typical movie, we're selling only about 100 vehicles. So we have plenty of space for people to spread out. And generally speaking, that's what's happening. Cars are feeling like they don't need to be next to anybody else, and they don't need to, because we have such great technology that they can be at any point in this park without feeling like their view of the screen is compromised. And since the audio is coming from their car stereo, they don't need to be closer to the screen to get the best audio view, best audio of the content of the movie. So we have had.
Can you talk about the screen, how bright it is? It's different than maybe a projection screen or some of these bubble screens that are going up now.
Sure. Yes. So one of the things we really wanted to do was to make sure that the quality of the experience for our guests was the best on the East Coast. And so we invested aggressively in LED monitors instead of a projector system. So what you see when you come to the Yarmouth Drive-In are actually the type of screens that you would find at Fenway Park for the instant replay screen, or at Gillette Stadium for a Patriots game. The quality is so good that you can see crystal clear in the middle of the day. So at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, we can be showing like yesterday, we showed the Bruins and Flyers on one screen, and we showed the Celtics and Trailblazers on the other at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And our attendees could see crystal clear in the middle of the day, both games. We had one screen showing one game, one screen showing the other, and we had 2 FM transmitters on 2 different stations. So you could tune in to the Bruins game, or you could tune in to the Celtics game. But regardless, you could see both screens from anywhere in the park, crystal clear.
Do you want to just mention how people go to get food, that you have to order ahead of time and they call you, what that whole process is like?
Sure. Yeah, our concessions program is built to avoid lines. So we built an e-commerce system where people can order their concessions online. They receive an order confirmation email, and they receive an order confirmation text message that says, please wait. Your order is confirmed, but please wait. You'll receive a text message confirmation when it's ready for you to pick up. Please wait in your car until you receive this notification. So at that point, we tell people, you know, when the order is fully put together in all enclosed materials, clamshells and bags, then that person is a text message for them to come and pick up their concessions. The concession tables are staffed with my staff wearing masks and gloves, and they are instructed to there's a line where there are markers, signs, little posts that say that mark 6 feet distances for people who, if they are waiting in line, know to stay 6 feet apart from the person standing in front of them to pick up their concessions.
Yes, and I did observe it both nights, and people were social distancing in line. There wasn't a long line. As he said, there were staff there to make sure people just didn't walk up, that they had to order online. There was no standing ordering online while you were waiting. So it was well organized at that aspect right there. And it also has the social distancing placards and stakes in front of the porta-johns that kind of go around the outside of the drive-in. And each one, besides having sanitizing, it also has a water and a hand wash also. So that was another, and I forget how many you have all the way around.
We have 40 banks of 2 restrooms per bank. I'm sorry, 20 banks of dual restrooms at each with a dual hand washing station stationed between the two porta potties.
Right. Good. And they do have lights for nighttime, so that
Yes,
works. out
yes.
well.
We have solar LED lights that wrap around the each porta potty that illuminate the inside.
So how many, I guess, just go into your schedule now a little bit. You have movies during the week, and how many events do you have planned and the type of events?
So yeah, at this point, let me take you off the screen share there. Can you see me now? As scary as that might be.
Can I ask a question before you get rid of that screen?
Yeah.
How would you handle a scenario where if somebody wants to watch the movie from their vehicle and somebody in the suite next door wants to watch the movie from outside of their vehicle?
They're
Wouldn't
supposed to watch it with their windows closed.
Okay. Okay.
Good point.
You don't foresee any potential problems there? I mean, I know that sometimes people can be sort of reluctant to comply.
If the other thing is that if somebody wants to watch from within their vehicle, they can move their vehicle to the center.
Okay.
You know,
And I think that's what I saw. I saw it was two different kind of groups on the comedian night on Friday. There was a lot of two people in the cars and they just parked right in the middle. There was a lot of trucks and SUVs that just parked right in the middle and just had a little bit more space if they wanted to get out. So I think more on Saturday where it was more of a concert and a rock band. I think I saw again the trucks backing in, but I think the cars that sat outside, the people did sit outside and they moved the cars, so that worked out well.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, you're going to go over your schedule, Adam?
Oh, sorry. Yes. So from this point forward, we're going to have, admittedly, as I mentioned to you earlier, the attendance for the movies was light. It was very, very expensive to run movies. The movie studio gets most of the money, so it's and you can't make much money on popcorn. So it's very difficult to finance this operation using movie revenue. And honestly, just because of the number of theaters that are showing movies, it wasn't much of a competitive advantage. We were basically splitting the movie audience with Hyannis, with Sandwich, with Wellfleet. They're doing some in New Bedford. And there's a new pop-up theater in Falmouth. So there's just a lot of competition on the movie front. So we focused a lot of our energy on something unique, which is live entertainment. So most of what we have coming up over the next 30 plus days, up until the end of our first permit, is live entertainment, live music, and live comedy. We have, it's a mix of acoustic acts, like we have Livingston Taylor coming up, and Liv will have maybe 100 cars come for his show, and then we have a band called the Ghost of Paul Revere. There'll be maybe 80 to 90 cars. Where these are not every show is going to sell what we sold over the weekend. That's not ever our expectation, but we do expect that we will have sellouts on occasion, but most of the time it's going to be in the 200 neighborhood in terms of what a typical band would sell.
Will you have any movies at all? Are you going to show any movies at all?
We do. Yes, except the right now the movies, the artist availability for touring acts is harder to schedule because you have to coordinate them against other cities and where they're going to be, especially ones that are outside of the quarantine zone where they'll have to be tested and stick around, those kinds of situations. So we are scheduling films on days where we don't have live entertainment.
What type of movies are you going to, here's a good time to give you a little prop or you got
It's honestly, the movie schedule is in flux. We're still working on licensing agreements with Warner Brothers and Paramount. And some of them want my firstborn child in return. So some very, very strange requests in terms of just really going to the extreme over negotiating over $500. Just a really, anyway, these are financial issues that are not really all that important, but the movie business is not a whole lot of fun to work with.
Okay. All your groups are coming from the New England area, so they don't
Yes.
have to quarantine? I think
Yeah. At this point, yes.
okay, good. Mr.
That
Chairman?
was always our intent as well. We figured we'd book bands that could drive from New York and Boston, something, like that, and book bands that were local, like Ripe, the band from Saturday night, they were from Boston.
Good.
It's certainly important for all of us to keep in mind because of the increasing number of cases. Governor Baker did make an adjustment in I think August 1st on numbers of people for gathering. And the outdoor gathering, I think, was reduced from 250 to 100 people. So the drive-in is a unique situation of a gathering, just the way they're structured, whether it's pods, cars, people in cars, outside. It's just something to keep in mind anytime we have large groups of people. And it's been certainly the biggest problem we've had recently, certainly on the Cape, but it's more people who are not maintaining appropriate social distancing and wearing masks. So it's a unique situation here with a lot of people in a large space, and certainly the company's been kind of on the distance, really have worked very hard in providing us some very detailed plans. I appreciate that.
One of the good things about our control over the space is that we have the ability to tell them how they behave on it, and that it's set as a condition of buying a ticket. So when they buy a ticket, they're accepting the conditions that we set for them, which is wearing a mask and conforming to social distancing rules. But we take it further, and we actually put the rope and posts up there just in case they forget what distancing means. There's a rope and a car between them and their neighbors. But we still take it seriously. We're always monitoring it. We're always paying attention to people and where they stand in relation to others. And I this is going to sound draconian, but I split up families the other night. 2 cars that came together, and they were cars that literally drove next to each other, and the families wanted to be in the same pod, but I had to tell them that I could tell that there was no way 7 people showed up in a small Toyota 4-door, and that the others came from the vehicle next to them, and that they had to move their vehicles into that checkerboard pattern. They nobody was thrilled they did it because we waited there until they moved their car.
I think, and that's the type of oversight in your staffing that we're looking forward to have that continue on the larger shows. Like you said, a lot of them are under 100 cars or 200 cars. It's just the larger shows that might draw more, and I'm not sure how many of them you're going to have. I know you're going to have a couple scheduled, but I think most of them will probably under the 200 car
Yes.
area.
The other thing is I want to say is that my staff is getting better and better with every show. They're becoming more confident in speaking with that voice that shows people that they're not only in charge, but informed and acting with the authority that we've given them to impose the proper policies and behavior upon our attendees. It's, there's always that little, people don't want to exert their authority, but in certain situations you have to. And the more people say the words of, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to do this, these are the rules, the more I support them, and the more my managers support their staff, the more we get people to feel confident that they can institute a set of procedures and processes that will keep people safely in the proper structure. And we saw that as the night wore on Saturday and on Friday, for that matter, where people have found their voice. They found that sense of being able to communicate to our ticket buyers, our attendees respectfully, but in an insistent way where, you know, I'm sorry, I'm just going to have to wait for you to move your vehicle, you know, and nobody resisted that. If I just stood there, or if the security people stood and just said, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to ask you to do that right away, or we're going to have to ask you to leave. And if you just stood there long enough, eventually they realized that it wasn't going to go away. And people did move their vehicles as they were told.
And that's good, because besides your staff that's doing it, you also have a separate security company that's working with you and assisting your staff.
That's correct. I was referring to them all as my staff, but yes, we hired, we have 42 local people who work as ushers, ticket takers, concessions, and they all, once their jobs are done, they all act as monitors roaming the aisles to ensure that we have they're in yellow t-shirts, and we make sure that there's always a presence where people see them. And we all know that deterrence, to a degree, has to do with being seen. And if people see that there are monitors paying attention the whole time and actively engaging people in casual conversations, that is the kind of thing that does give people the understanding that they're not going to be just getting away with not paying attention.
As to the agenda, I think the big issue here tonight, we're being asked to give comment on, is the alcohol sales. Certainly a lot of time has gone in to review the seating. Bruce, you put a lot of time into it, right? And thank you for that. So, but for tonight, it's really a new issue, and that's alcohol sales. I guess is being presented to us, and next week we'll go to the selectmen, who really are in control of liquor licenses in town. But I suppose we need to give our opinion on this issue of just selling alcohol there. Bruce, is there something you need
Yes,
to
I can give a little background on that request. Yes, Adam and the company does have a request before the selectmen for alcohol on the property. They have boiled it down to two proposals, I would say. One is a tent, a beer tent would be set up where people could go the same way as you get food. You would call in, get your ID checked, tell when you could come up and go pick it up. My concern on that is that there would still probably be a line on the big events. And I had a concern on that. So then Adam looked at a different proposal of having it delivered, and he can expand on both these proposals in a minute. But you would still call it in so they could check your ID, who it is, and then they would deliver it to each pod. So the people stay in their pods, and there'd be less going out also. And it would be delivered by a golf cart, kind of like at Fenway, where they bring the liquor around, the beer around and deliver it. It would be brought around and would have your name on it, and then they could check the person that it's going to is the other proposal. So that's the two proposals that I see that we boiled down for discussion tonight. I think probably the only one that I would consider would be the golf cart one. There's still the overall concern of liquor at a drive-in that the board needs to consider. But if there was one proposal that had a little bit more weight on it to consider, would be the golf cart one. But still thinking about alcohol at a drive-in anyway. So with that, Adam, why don't I just let you kind of polish up both those proposals?
Sure. So yeah, thank you, Bruce. So what I've been trying to work on is, you know, we have two issues. We have the legality issue, which is like the police and the town, but then there's also the safest way to serve it as well and to distribute it. And that's really what we were trying to sort through the process that was the safest potential process in terms of exposure to COVID and reducing the amount of interaction between different groups of people. So what we came up with were the three scenarios. One was like a typical beer garden, but of course a beer garden would have people group in a enclosed space where they were standing around consuming a beer, and we'd have to kind of give people a little area to stand in while they drank their beer. That's obviously very awkward. The second scenario is that we have people buy beer or wine the same way they would buy concessions, which is that they get a text message, come pick up your beer, and then you can go back to your space. There would be a little bit more interaction with people there because they would go into an enclosed area that would be barricaded off and show their ID to somebody who would have to give them a bracelet identifying them as being of age, and then walking up to an area where they would pick up their beverage. And we would be restricting it to 1 beverage per person. So the number of times we have, Mary, it looks like you're sliding off your chair every time.
I've got this on a pillow, I'm sorry. and it just
That's
keeps
okay. It's a
sliding.
little funny. It's a little funny to watch. It
Right.
looks like you're disappearing under the sky. Anyway, sorry about that. The one scenario is that people would go and pick it up, and then they would pass the ID check and be given a bracelet, etc., and then they return to their suite. But one of the other plans that's been implemented at another drive-in site is one where the beverages are ordered online like they are through concessions. The prep of each person's order is put in a box by serving staff in an enclosed area that's not publicly available, and then that box is put onto the bed of a golf cart along with other orders, and then delivered to a corresponding site where at that point their ID is checked. The people who purchased their beverages will have the text message on their phone verifying their name and age against the identification that they show the server, and then the server can give them the beverage after putting the person puts their bracelet on, and at that point that order is handled and considered fulfilled, and then the serving golf cart goes on to the next person that ordered their beverages. The beverages themselves won't be open. These will be served in cans, and no additional cups, and the beverage itself won't be opened until that person's identification has been verified and their bracelet is on. So the beverage stays enclosed, and the opener, the person that's opening it, is the server in the golf cart, who's wearing gloves, of course, and a mask. So we reduce the amount of people wandering around the site by delivering the beverages to the actual suites themselves, and people can, of course, we reduce the amount of walking and communal traffic around the site.
How many beverages can a person order?
One per person. So 1 per order in essence.
Can they order for 2 people? Husband and wife?
They can't, that would really come down to, I have a meeting with Officer Ferguson tomorrow. Actually, I'm coming back over to the mainland tomorrow, and I hope I am, after the weather. And after that, I hope I can get back. I live on Martha's Vineyard, by the way. Sorry. But I have a meeting with him, and honestly, I think that's a matter of the town regulations, and I'll follow whatever guidance they would like.
So we don't know that yet. In other words, if you have 5 people in the car, 1 person can order for everyone, or 5 separate orders have to come in. I know you were using a bracelet and a person, so that's why I was having trouble following that.
So if the proposal says 1 beer per order, and we are prepared to do 1 beer per order, so that would mean that the person who ordered it would get the wristband and get the beer.
And the other 4 people in the car would do what?
They would have to order separately.
How do they get the wristband? Maybe I missed that.
The person in the golf cart that serves them
Yes,
is checking their identification to confirm they're of age, and they'll be giving it. If you're of age, you get a wristband that identifies you as being of age.
at that time.
Yes.
Okay. But even if they want to call the next order in, you go through the same process, so they can't pass that wristband on to somebody else.
These are those tear-proof wristbands that can't be stretched, and if you rip it off, you can't put it on somebody else.
Is there a limit that you would put to if it's an individual person? I mean, is there a max of three per night or something?
I mean, I'm sure our systems could handle putting a limit on that. As far as the number that the person could order per email address or something like that, or per cell phone number. It's not really, that's a software issue, but I'm sure it could be done if that was necessary.
How else would you monitor if someone were inebriated or not?
Well, the people, the servers are going to be tip certified. These are people who have the licensing and have gone through the training. So these are the people who'll be in the golf cart.
Okay,
The golf cart people will literally be servers, just like you would find at a bar.
okay.
Fortunately, they don't need a license to drive a golf cart.
Yeah, no, just concerned looking at or listening to you would be the three people in the back of the car is not quite as visible as when you're at a bar. That's all.
Well, it's standard. There is no drinking in a motor vehicle. So if they were sitting in a car, they shouldn't be drinking a beer.
So in the drive-in, they have to be sitting outside in order to drink?
I would not have a problem with making that policy.
I'm not suggesting that. I just didn't know what you had in mind here.
That's been my understanding, is that it's not legal to drink in a car. So we've been considering that was a standard operating procedure, was that people wouldn't be drinking it while they're sitting in a car. Isn't that law in Massachusetts that they can't drink in a car?
That
I don't know.
I'd have to defer to the police or the selectman licensing agent on that.
I don't think you're supposed to have open containers
Correct.
of alcohol in a car, right?
That's correct. If you're leaving a restaurant, you would need a bill and you have to seal the bottle of wine to bring it
Right.
home and so on. Yes, you can't have open alcohol in the car.
Yeah. So we always assume that would not be something that we'd permit because it's against the law.
When do you go before the selectmen to make your presentation?
August 11th, next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday, okay.
And I'm meeting with Officer Ferguson tomorrow at 3 p.m. to get a better understanding of what the legal code is with regard to alcohol sales.
Okay. Has the police or fire departments commented on your proposals yet? Your proposal?
No.
Okay.
I mean, they've given me some questions, you know, like if we had a beer garden, how would people hear the show?
Yeah.
And, you know, those kind of things, but.
If you did the delivery service, how many golf carts or drivers would you have?
We'd have four. We'd have one golf cart per section, but two for the middle section because that's the largest. There are about 100 vehicles in section 1, about 220 in section 2, and about 110 or so in section 3.
I mean, we're looking at this, your proposal, as more of a dining, serving area. It's, you know, and not a bar atmosphere. So I think that's why the beer garden was out. But I think that's the concern that I would have, that because, you know, bars aren't allowed at this time, but yet you can do service to outdoor dining and so forth. So we have to make sure it doesn't look like, congregating at a bar area, or a bar area and the pods are turning into separate little bar areas.
We are considering ourselves a dining establishment that shows entertainment. I mean, we're called a drive-in, but, you know, largely we are a place where people can get some food and watch a show. And so the alcohol sales are just a complementary element, not a primary element of what we offer. hopefully a complimentary. It's frankly, it's, as I've mentioned a few times, it is very, very, one, it was very expensive to build the site. And two, it's very expensive to operate in this industry. So the ability, the additional revenue is something that we would struggle immensely if we didn't have it.
The site looks great. Compliment on that, the way it's set up. Just speaking as an individual member of the board, I would not support the sale of the alcohol. I just think it reduces people's
Inhibitions.
yeah, our judgment changes. Think back in your lives, probably when you've had things to drink, maybe you made some poor decisions, and it certainly has happened with alcohol. The plan overall, drive-in is excellent, but it really requires everyone to follow regulations and rules about when they're buying or driving in, or into a spot there. And my concern is the addition of alcohol and the effect that it has on people who often do not want to be told what to do, is what we're finding out. Just the simple thing of wearing a mask here. The percentage of positive cases are going up in Massachusetts. So just as an individual board member, that's my opinion. I would not support the sale of alcohol at the drive-in.
I do understand. I guess my question is, considering restaurants offer alcohol sales and they have a much freer flow of alcohol than we would have, we do think we've put up a preventive structure that even the best restaurant does not. And we have checks and balances that most restaurants do not have, both limiting access, making it more complicated in order to acquire the alcohol, and yet the same systems of compliance apply. So we have the ability to, of course, follow the exact same rules, except the standards and the actual actions of the people who wish to have a beverage are far greater than it would be if you went into a restaurant.
How are you going to keep people from bringing in their own beverages?
That would be something that, we can't search people's vehicles. We can, but the thing is, we can tell if they're drinking something that we didn't sell them. But ultimately, that question unfortunately doesn't have anything really to do with the liquor, the actual permit to sell alcohol. That would be something that would be about our ability to, if we right now, I can tell you that if they have alcohol, we tell them they can't have it, and if they don't put it away, they're ejected. And that exists regardless of whether we have our license. But if we do have our license, then they will also be ejected because they're drinking alcohol they did not buy on our site. But if there were other things that you would be looking for me to do in order to control the distribution to ensure compliance, we're willing to do that. I mean, in order to achieve the ability to keep people separated from other people, I spent $25,000 in building those pods and hiring the staff to both cut posts, drill posts, put posts in the ground. It's about proper procedures from my perspective to ensure compliance. It's not about alcohol per se. It's about the processes and the environment with which you put the alcohol in that determines compliance. And we have a very good, strong history of risk management and understanding that people's behavior can influence our ability to operate. And so we consider their behavior a potential hindrance on our ability to do what we do best. And my reputation is one of being very process oriented and very committed to investing properly in people and systems in order to ensure that they follow the proper procedures. I'm not sure if most of you are aware, but I was issued the first ever day permit to sell beer and wine in Vineyard Haven on Martha's Vineyard, a town that was dry only 10 years ago. So for our music festival, Beach Road Weekend on Martha's Vineyard last summer, we were issued and received the first ever day permit to sell beer and wine. There were no arrests. Not one. There were 3 arrests outside the park from people who got drunk somewhere else and tried to get in. But they didn't have tickets. And we consider both the safety of our attendees and the safety of our staff the most important thing we can do. So we are going to make sure that people follow the rules, because we know, honestly, people are paying attention. In Vineyard Haven, I had the world watching me. In this situation, I have the same. My industry is watching over my shoulders, trying to figure out how to do this. And we have built a site that is unique. We have the largest, believe it or not, the largest live entertainment venue in the Northeast right now. The Boston, TD Garden's closed, Gillette Stadium is closed, Fenway Park's closed. We are operating safely, and we've been operating safely since September 12th. And people realize that if they misbehave, they're gonna ruin it for everybody. So you do have this kind of buy-in where people want this to continue, and they're not really going to do those kinds of resistant behaviors that would lead us to have to shut down. But our bands, the beautiful thing is the talent that we bring in also understands that the world is watching us. None of us want to be what happened in the Hamptons last weekend. None of us want to be poster childs for why Governor Baker shuts this business down. So the band themselves recorded a video, the band Ripe from Saturday night recorded a video they released earlier in the week on Instagram. They got tens of thousands of likes of them saying how they would shut the show down if people misbehaved. And we have that kind of buy-in from the industry because we all know what eyeballs are on us. So I hope that you can support us and understand that we have everybody's interest in mind, and we are always striving to improve upon our processes. And we're not blind enough to say that we're perfect, but we are realistic enough to say that we are always going to be improving. So I ask for your support in terms of getting the license, because we have great systems we're putting in place, and we have systems that blow away the systems that are currently being employed in restaurants everywhere.
No, you're very methodical, very detail oriented. For me, it's the issue of people not wanting to be told what to do. It's very difficult to enforce things as simple as wearing a mask that people do not want to do. In comparison to a restaurant, we're talking really a mass gathering here. Let's say a person drives in as one person to a car, you could have 300 people there plus 50 people of staff members, perhaps. Those are just numbers I'm throwing out there. And it's at night, people inside cars. There are a lot of issues there. Your intentions are great. I just think your options for enforcement are limited, as we can see, whether it's on our beaches or people's backyards. Here we're talking about a few hundred people as a mass gathering. So that's.
I totally understand. One of the things is that people on the beaches think it's their civil right not to wear a mask. The people in my site know it's my rules. And I have the ability to escort them out if they misbehave. They're not going to yell about the Constitution. They're not going to yell about whether it's my right or theirs. They understand that we have the full authority to escort them out if they don't follow proper venue procedures. And this is common in venues across the United States. You misbehave, you're out. And it's just really about understanding what the proper behavioral expectations are and letting people know. And we do a very, very comprehensive job about warning people in advance, warning them when they're on site, both visually and in person, and ensuring that we are always there. You know, I kind of believe to some degree that when you notice somebody stretching the rules a little bit, that you have to remind them where the boundaries are, because that person acts as a leader for some other misbehavior. So our approach and the reason we staff so aggressively in terms of numbers is to make sure that there is always somebody there to say, hey, you know, you got to get back in your pod, because we don't want that person to act as a leader for some other person down the aisle saying, well, that person's out there, so I can go too. So we are taking an interventionist approach of saying, hey, you can't do that here. If you want to go, you can go somewhere else, but you can't do that here. And then setting the example for other attendees by saying, okay, when that person steps out of their pod and they're instantly, there's a virtually instant intervention from one of our staff, that the people see that intervention and that deters them from thinking that they should do the same thing.
Anyone else on the board have any opinions you'd like to share? If not, I mean, we're not issuing the, the alcohol license that's going to happen or approved or not next week by the selectmen. So if that's the case, Bruce, do you have anything else you want to mention at all? Adam, anything you want to add?
No, I really want to thank you for hearing me out and
Sure.
giving us the opportunity to learn, giving us the opportunity to fail a little bit and then learn and adjust and adapt our behavior and our processes to constantly improve. I mean, it's weird to think that this site, we started building it on July 5 and we just went through our first venue renovation. We were open 2 weeks and we already renovated the venue one time. So, we're really building something special. We're the talk of the Northeast right now. We've confirmed, I think it's over 20 concerts, both comedy and live music. And like I said, everything from Livingston Taylor and a little folk music to some rock music to jam bands, all different kinds of things. And we're bringing a lot of people and business to Yarmouth, I think, when people need it. We're really happy with the response. It's been universally very positive, and people have been buying into the limitations of what's expected of them when they're in sight, when they're on the grounds. It is different from what I'm seeing in public, because people know they're coming onto quote unquote a private space that they need to buy into rules that we established when they purchased a ticket. There's if I'm correct, I know we asked for this. There's a checkbox where they accept the rules of our site before they purchase a ticket. So they're buying into a contractual obligation that when they buy the ticket, they embrace the fact that there is a requirement that they wear a mask and that they follow our advisories as they're prescribed. Anyway, I don't want to, I can go on for hours. it's my industry. It's the thing I love. It's the thing I've been doing for almost 25 years. The whole this whole experience is devastating for my industry, and I want to make sure that we do everything in our power to keep it alive.
Place looks great. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and it's great to bring business, to town here and employ people. That's great. Thank you.
And bring
thank
some
you all.
entertainment.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Have a good night, guys.
Okay, good luck with it.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I guess my question is, if the selectmen ask, they haven't asked, but if they do ask in the next couple of days what the Board of Health consideration is, any thought that you would like, how I want me to respond?
Board members, what are you feeling about that? If directors ask a question, how does the board feel about it? What should Mr. Murphy say?
I would say that we heard Mr. Epstein's explanation of the processes that he has put into place, that it sounds as if he has done everything in a rational, prudent way, and that he is willing to continue to tweak things if they're not working. That we did have some concerns about alcohol being an influence on people's behavior in terms of being able to keep on masks and socially distance and not get together in groups. but it sounds as if his staff is trained and willing and able to monitor and enforce the type of rules that he has made for the venue.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Eric, anything you want to add or not?
Not really. I mean, I would just defer to the selectmen. I'd be much more inclined to support the delivery service of the alcohol as opposed to the beer garden. And I would suspect they may impose some type of a limit per person, whether it's 2 or 3 or whatever it might be for the night. But
Great, thank you, Eric. Does that
Okay.
help you out?
Yes, it
Sure.
does. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good. All right, so let's move along on the
Thank you,
agenda.
Adam.
Thank you, guys.
thank you.
Have a
Okay,
good
take
night.
care.
Good luck with the weather tomorrow.
Yeah,
Okay, number 4 here is update on coronavirus. So apparently we have some statistics or graphs. That's what's listed here.
Yeah, which we try to bring up each meeting where we sit with our coronavirus update. Let's see, we have we're currently at an overall of 132 active cases that we've had in town. We had one active case drop off today that we thought was active, but after further review by the person's doctor and testing, the doctor agreed that it was not coronavirus. So we readjusted to an overall of 132 active cases that we've had. We have no active cases right now. We've had 3 deaths and we've had 129 recovered. So we've been maintaining this graph that I think shows very well where we saw the active cases in May and then the recovered cases. And we've only had 1 or 2 cases here and there. It's been very sporadic. So I think when we see the number of recovered cases and, going several days without a case or a week, 10 days without a case, that's encouraging overall, but we do see quite a few complaints about not wearing masks and so forth, which I'll get into second. So I just wanted to show this graph that was developed the other day, last week, for the people to look at home. And the second graph is a running 7-day graph that the chairman maintains, and you can speak to that, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I don't know if we can slide it over a little bit more to see the rest of July. What I'm looking at right now, I can only see up to, I don't know, July 16th.
Take
or
our
so.
people off.
Any chance to see the right side of the x-axis there?
Got to keep going. Or turn it.
Just shows a little increased activity that.
Yeah, he's working on that now, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Can you just take us off or just turn it, or?
Bruce, while we're working on that, the issue of deaths, I know it was coming discussion about the location of the person where they're living and how many deaths have taken place in our town. Something we had talked about. Did we learn anything yet?
What I heard back from the state is that the deaths go to the location that the person deceased at. So even though it might have been a Yarmouth resident, if he was in a nursing home in another town or was at Cape Cod Hospital or a different hospital, that's where the location of death is listed. So we're still looking at a couple that was a question of where their deaths live. So we know where we have our 3, and we still had a question on 2 that we're doing some further research into.
Yes, that's unfortunate.
Mhm.
My feeling was that the majority of the deaths would take place at the hospital. I guess long-term facilities would be number 2 in it. So you would think that all the deaths on the Cape would take place in Hyannis because they happen to be at the hospital. So it's not,
Right.
it's difficult to interpret that number then. Okay. Okay, thanks for adjusting the graph there. As you can see, since the 16th, there's a little bit more activity of positive cases. I know state-wise, it's crept up a little bit. On testing, it's a little bit over 2% now. It's gone up. As for us here in Yarmouth, we can just see since the 16th, a little bit more activity. So we'll see where it goes. Let's be
Yes.
hopeful.
You can also see that over a 5-week period, we had a case, only one case here or there, and it does look like it's a pop-up. But I think when you look at that number, because the graph is so small, it's just showing one
Yes.
cases that we're seeing. So, but it's something that we like to follow. It's a good graph when we look at both of them. It's something that we work on and look at each week. Daily, we're working with the VNA on the contact tracing and what we have within the community and what we need to monitor. So I
Is
think-
there any chance that at the end of this or at some point, we might know how successful the contact tracing has been? You know, what the rate of contact has been, how many people have been actually able to, how many contacts have been reached? I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Yes, that I don't know. I know the VNA reaches out when we do get a positive. They
Right.
ask them their contacts, then they do call the contacts. Now, whether they develop a positive case later, I can discuss that with the VNA. It doesn't pop up a lot. It's not like we hit a cluster. We've been very lucky in Yarmouth and have not had a cluster that we've seen in a couple of the other towns that have had a large number reported.
Right. Be interesting to know.
Yes, yes. So with that, we still receive probably daily complaints about masks, people not wearing masks, and whether that's at the beach, walking to the beach from the beach parking lots, walking down to the boardwalk, whether it's at Grays Beach or Colonial Acres. People going in stores without a mask, people going into restaurants without a mask, restaurants, wait staff might not having a mask. And that's probably a daily call. We had the calls about gatherings at the play recreation areas, in particular Homer's Park, more people playing basketball and gathering at the park. So it's something that we're receiving a lot of calls from daily. The restaurants, we do follow up with the restaurants on a complaint, and then we also do spot checks. Might not include a whole restaurant inspection, but just a spot check to make sure that masks are being worn. We have a good relationship, I would say, with the businesses, and from what I can see, and Inspector Phil going out, that they have been in compliance. We've had a couple motels that we've had calls on, and whether it was some of their staff people that might have not had it on or around the pool area. So it's something that we spend pretty much all our day on. Between Phil and myself, that's a high majority of our day, trying to continuing education out there. I did include one letter that you see that we received from somebody in here. This is a typical email that we've got. People at the Residence Beach, South Middle Beach, walking to the beach, not wearing a mask. Grays Beach Boardwalk is a daily routine one. And then even the Smugglers Beach Fish Pier, we get calls from time to time. So I just wanted to kind of pass that along to the board, that it's constant education that we need to do out there.
But there's signs up already, right?
There's signs everywhere. We have signs at all the beaches, mask and social distancing. We have it at the playgrounds. We have it at the dog park. Some have been taken down. We've had to replace them. We've asked for additional signs to be placed closer to both boardwalks. But we have had some sign vandalism. We're asking some more signs to be placed in those spots. And then if we can also place additional signs, possibly on the restroom facilities. Probably that this kind of leads me into a little bit, Mr. Chairman, that the selectmen at their meeting next week on the 11th will be discussing potentially resident-only beaches, or what they can do at some of the beaches to also control wearing a mask and maybe overcrowding. And they have one in particular is Grays Beach that they've had a lot of requests that I've passed on to the selectmen and that they've received themselves, that residents would like to have residents-only beach and staffed so it could be under controlled and enforced better. And I've already responded back to the selectmen that the Board of Health recommended that several months ago at Grays Beach, along with DPW and Rec. Because that's right now just an open beach with people coming in with or without stickers. There's been requests from Dennis Pond that they would like to have that as a resident only and enforced along more. And we've also had requests that maybe some of our other beaches should be enforced more. So the selectmen will be discussing that at their August 11th meeting next week, along with the drive-in. I have mentioned that to a couple people that have filed complaints that they might want to forward their complaints to the selectmen and maybe attend that meeting also, which will be a live meeting at Town Hall. So I guess that kind of covers the update of the coronavirus, and I'd just like to give an update on a couple other, I kind of told you the update on the beaches and that. I thought the high school graduation kind of all planned very well. The social distancing with the students on the field, spacing out their chairs 9 feet apart was very helpful. The parents in both stands were very good, were social distanced, and we did not need to use additional seats that we had brought in. They had brought in around the fence. The number of parents that came to the event was able to sit in the bleachers, and I think that might have been due because it was also a live event that parents and relatives could watch at home. So I think that was helpful. The 2 points that we had concerns were obviously early when the students were arriving, to keep them a social distance apart, which was challenging, but we did the best we could there. And we had a march in 2 different locations that we had talked about earlier on both sides of the end zone, that we could have 2 separate lines on both sides. And then leaving, they marched out in one solid line, which was, we did get everybody out. The whole ceremony was about 1 hour and 15 minutes. And again, getting everybody graduation to leave, the students to leave with the parents was also a little challenging, but with parents trying to congratulate their children and students talking to each other, we were able to move them out. I'd say within the 10 to 15 minutes, we're able to get everybody out. So that was helpful. So I thought that went okay.
So Bruce,
Yes.
I have a question then. The picture that was in the register showing the principal handing the diploma to the student, neither one wearing a mask and, kind of touching. Is that how it was done with all the students, or was that just a posed picture?
No, the principal had a glove on when he passed the diploma. He was handed the diploma by somebody else with a glove. He had a glove on to hand it to the student. There was no conversation with the student or hugging or anything like that. The student just acknowledged it and walked past. And then as they went down the stairs, they were able to have their picture taken. So
But no mask on.
we understood that short period of time.
The principal was exposed to a lot of kids then.
So,
Hope he doesn't get sick.
right. So points learned. If we have to do something for next year, hopefully not, but something that we can build on.
Right.
Bruce, while you're on the subject of schools, what's the latest on reopening?
The school's working on their reopening plan now. I think they've sent a draft into Department of Education. They have reached out to town to get to a general meeting, which would include the building inspector, police and fire department to look at their opening plan and visit. I have reached out to the director of school nurses as what's going to be needed for their response if a child becomes sick at school, how that student is isolated at the school. What happens if somebody doesn't come in, they're calling the students at home. So that's something that we're being developed, and we'll be probably meeting this week later in the week to discuss with them as a team. And then I also see myself working closely with the school team and the team nurse that will be working with other school nurses. And I think that's a point of consideration that we had some of that in March when coronavirus was just coming in, that would get a call from the school nurse that somebody was home, that they would be making a call on for determination. The more of a concern that has come up with some of the DPH conferences from other health departments is that if you had a student out on, let's say, Tuesday, you got a call and he might not go to the doctor on Tuesday or Wednesday till he decides he has to go get a test on Thursday, and we might not get the results back to Monday or Tuesday. You know, what's the responsibility of the school to let others know because it's a negative test? Might not be back yet. We're not sure the kid has even been tested. What's going to be the school protocol? Because every day there's probably 20, 30 kids out of school for various reasons. So they'll all have to be called and monitored. I don't think the schools come up with their final plan of students at school. And I think they're looking at a hybrid where they might go to school 2 days and then have 3 days at home, and possibly one day in the middle of the week, Wednesday, for a deep cleaning of the school. So I think that's all in the discussion process right now that we'll be learning and participating with them more this week.
Yeah, I think the Board of Health needs to be actively involved in some of the decision making, so we can speak about that after the meeting, Bruce. Okay.
Certainly, you know, they have to follow and have their plans submitted to the Department of Education. Obviously, we can have some comments into it.
Sure, great. Any
Uh,
other?
The ABCC Alcoholic Beverage Commission on their state alcohol violation, I did finally receive back from them that it was only a verbal warning that they issued to Tavern 731 on Route 28. So there was not an official warning. We're going to be reaching out to that business to let them know that we did receive the acknowledgement of the verbal warning, a violation of the governor's order of serving drinks at the bar. And we will contact him to mention that should not continue, and that's a violation of the governor's orders. Should we notice that it continues, we will again notify the ABCC or the Department of Labor.
What
So
is this
that kind
board's?
of brings me up to the coronavirus update.
What is this board's responsibility for the dealing with this violation, Bruce?
Well, there's really no violation that I think the board has to act on right now. We haven't received anything in writing from ABC, just the notification as a verbal warning. We
Okay.
did get something from the police department that they sent to the Board of Selectmen when that was investigated by police. And that notice of concern was sent to all the town liquor holders and businesses in town, kind of put them on notice. I think most of them have taken it under advisement. I think there might be still a few out there that are still falling back to the selectmen said we can open and do what we want, but as long as we're safe. I think we might still have a few businesses under that scenario out there. So we will follow up on this particular case and go from there.
Great, thank you. Number 6, updated Triple
Um,
E.
You have that in your packet. I don't know if you want to discuss that, Mr. Chairman. It was an update I passed along from Department of Public Health that came out, I want to say Thursday.
There it is for people to see if they read it, just that there've been some cases picked up, just in mosquito testing, not people. As we're aware that there were cases last year with people, but none to date.
We can scroll down a little bit more. So I think it's, as we start to get into mosquito season, as the chairman mentioned, people need to look around their homes that they don't have stagnated water that, luckily we have, I don't know, we haven't had any rain, so it shouldn't be too much stagnated out there. But in case they have sprinklers going or something, they want to make sure they're not collecting in any flower pots or something that could be collecting, or should have no tires that it would collect in. And, we are going into mosquito season, so you're going to start hearing a lot more of this in the newspapers and on the TV and the radio. So it's time when, you're out at dusk and you need to avoid the mosquito bites, and they've found positive mosquitoes off Cape. Cape Cod Mosquito Control out of Barnstable, County of Barnstable, does do regular testing throughout the all Cape. So they're monitoring all the mosquito areas in various towns across the Cape and stay in close contact with each of the local health departments. So we'll continue touching base with them, and we'll probably make a note of this at each of our board meetings as we do a coronavirus update.
Yeah, as for this specific infection, it results in infection of the brain. And that's what's so scary about it, with a very high mortality rate. So that's, people really need to be careful.
And there are mosquitoes out in the daytime now.
Yes.
So it's not just evening.
Right.
Dr. Bosky, do you have any recommendation on types of bug spray, active ingredients?
There's no conflict of interest. I'm not invested in any of the companies. That's a concern.
I mean, well, from a health standpoint, I don't really know. I thought I had heard that DEET was not good to be putting on your skin. I don't know. Just wondering.
Yeah, I don't think
comment.
there's some restrictions for kids,
Right.
but for adults, I think it's great. It's proven. So
Strongest, best.
yeah.
All right, good enough.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I think that covers your meeting. We have no other septic variances or variances pending at this time. So I would just say, let's hold off to see if we need anything towards the end of August. If something comes up with the coronavirus for an update, we can go to the end of August, the 1st of September with an update to the board. I did do a robocall about a week and a half ago to get that message out. And I think that was well received, because when I've gone around town a couple times, people said, oh, we've missed the robocall. And I said, well, things are going fine. We need to keep social distancing, wearing masks, but our numbers are down. And they said, well, we didn't know that. We like the robocall. So that might be something that we work on to refresh people's mind as we go through the summer.
Right. I think it's a good idea to continue them.
Okay. Anyone else with any new or old business? This would be the time to do that. See no hands. We can finish up then. If someone wants to make a motion to
I
adjourn.
move that we adjourn.
Eric, let's just second that. There we go. Very good. So there is no discussion, and let's just raise your hand and say aye if you want to adjourn. There we go.
Aye.
Unanimous. Everyone, stay healthy.
Good night.
Mask. Take care.
Bye.